The luxury restaurant manager kicked out this old man not knowing who he really is. Every day we wake up and get on with our lives. Do we think about others who are less fortunate? They do not wake up in the morning to a glass of coffee or tea, but they start searching for a new job to take on, or a slice of bread. We walk past many homeless people every day. Many people have the assumption that homeless people are only lazy. No one knows what they have been through in the past, and judging them can be a huge mistake. Let's take a look into the life of a man called Don Juan and what he fixed. He started walking around the streets, searching for food. He came across a famous and rich restaurant chain and stopped in front of it. As he stared into the fancy glass of the restaurant, he got hungrier. By the second, the people sitting inside the restaurant noticed this man standing and staring at their food, and they started to feel uncomfortable. The man was hungry and had no idea what to do. The delicious food just drew him closer to the glass, and without his knowledge he started walking towards the door of the restaurant. There was no guard at this point, so he walked into the restaurant looking at everyone around him. He got some glances from a few tables, but he ignored them. The manager of the restaurant noticed why everyone's attention was suddenly deviated and came out to see what was happening. He saw a homeless man standing inside his restaurant, and he was outraged. He walked up to Don and asked him what he wanted. Don politely requested that he was hungry and if they could spare some food for the older man, he would be more than grateful for their help. The manager kept quiet for a second, so Don thought that he might help him out with a little food, but to his surprise, he started screaming at him, cursed to him, and told him to get out of the restaurant before he gets even angrier. Don did not give up on his work and he tried to convince the manager. He tried explaining to him that all he wanted was a little bread. He is in his last days of life and his hunger might kill him sooner. The manager was so enraged that he started clenching his fist, but did not want to do anything that might ruin the reputation of the restaurant. The guard had returned to the door from his break. The manager stared at him with fire in his sights. Do you want to insult this man more than ever now? He tried to stand taller than him and told him go away and look for a job or take a shower and come back with cleaner clothes. But all I would allow you to do is stand and look from outside the restaurant, because no matter what your kind of people, have no right to walk into a place like this. One could not believe what he was hearing. Don expected the man to either turn him down politely or hand him some leftovers at least, but the rude behavior made him feel like it's not worth living on earth, even if it's just his last days there. One understood what more would happen if he stood there longer, so he started walking away, and this time he went to another branch, but at the same restaurant chain. Here, even before he gets into the place he was stopped by the waitress, requested her to let him in, even told her that he was a regular there before he used to have a lot of money earlier, but lost it all by accident. He tried convincing her to let him speak to the owner as he knew him. She started laughing at him and called the chef to came out and asked him what he wanted. He told her the same thing he told the waitress. He used to be a regular at the restaurant and now is looking for some food, even if it is a piece of bread. The chef ridiculed him and told him to get lost in the place. Don could not believe that not even a single place was ready to let go of a piece of bread, but he stood there assuming that some other employee would do something out of the goodness of their heart. But even the manager came out and asked him to dig the dumpster behind the restaurant if he want to eat something. Don felt dejected and he walked around the city wondering, did humans lose their humanity? His hunger started to grow and he suddenly realized that he knew someone personally in one of these restaurant chains and knew Carlos, who happened to be the head chef in that restaurant, the right-hand man of the owner of these restaurant chains. It would be the next in line to get the restaurants in his name after the owner's death. This restaurant wasn't too far from the one he was in accurately, so he started walking towards it while thinking about what the world has turned into and knew Carlos for a very long time, and he knew that if not others, at least he would be by his side and offer him a little food to eat. As he walked into the restaurant, and this happened to be the oldest restaurant branch among all he walked up to, the chef was cooking in an open kitchen and begged him for a little food. Carlos did not bother even looking up as he was cooking. He asked the man to walk away and not trouble him. He continued to tell him that this was not a soup kitchen and he had to leave the restaurant before he called the security guard kick him out. Don tried to explain his situation to Carlos. He said that everyone so far has kicked him out. All he needs is a slice of bread to stay alive. Carlos laughed and told him that other people did the right thing. You requested the man to leave the premises and get a job instead of begging for food. He told him that other people were right to dismiss him, thinking that he was a villain or madman or some sort. Carlos even went on to say that only people with money deserve to stay and eat in a place like this, and he had no right to be entering through the door even, accused him of walking around asking for food instead of getting a job and feeding himself. Don could not believe that the person he knew for all these years replied this way to him. He never thought that in the final days of his life he would be treated this way. Don did not give up and stood there trying to explain his story. To be told him, no sir, I used to be rich and it was not by mistake, but I still lost all my money. Please do not tell me that you are heartless to the extent that you would not look out for your own time. Carlos laughed as he told him about being a good man deep down. He smirked and told John that, forget about you, the man who owns this restaurant chain is going to die soon, and once he does all these restaurants are going to be his. He told him that Carlos pretended to be the best friend and the right hand of the owner only for his money and nothing else, so why would he be a homeless man? Don was speechless and he ran out of the restaurant before he could say anything else. Don was emotional at this point and started crying. His faith in humanity was being crushed one piece at a time. He had never been this sad and dejected in his life. The words of Carlos kept ringing in his head. Carlos had mentioned something about the stupidity of the owner and his belief in doing good to the world. Don did not give up here, and he went to every chain of the same restaurant, only to receive the same ignorance in every spot. He had covered every other spot begging for food, except for one. This was on the main street, and the poshest amongst other branches. This was also a hot spot, and attracted a lot of rich people. He knew that just like the others even here he would be treated the same way. As he walked into the restaurant, security guard smiled at him and asked him how he was. Don was taken aback by this behavior. A single restaurant had treated him so politely. So far Don's face started to grow a strong smile. Don was pleasantly surprised and walked towards the guard, then asked him what he wanted. Don went on to explain that he was hungry and no one is ready to offer even a slice of bread to the man. The watchman smiled at him and told him to wait by the door while he checks what he can do for him. The guard called the manager out to the entrance. After a few minutes the manager was outside and saw that an older man was standing there looking at him. He asked him, "Sir, tell me what I can do for you." Don goes on to explain that it's been days since he didn't eat anything. He wanted to eat some food. The manager smiled at him and told him to wait for a while and he will arrange for something. Don was more than happy when he heard this. He held the manager's hand and thanked him a lot. Whether he was going to give him food or not, so far he has not treated him in the wrong way. The manager told him to wait for a table to clear up that he can eat inside in. Don was ready to wait for his table. He stood there waiting for half an hour. By now, 1 hour had passed and there was still no news from inside. Don understood that he was being bluffed and decided to leave the place. He started walking away. It was almost 1 hour now and the restaurant was empty. There was almost no one left inside. So Don started walking away from the restaurant. He had not gone very far. The manager started running behind him. Called out to him and asked him to come back. Don looked at him in disappointment. The manager was smiling and apologized for making him wait. He told them that they had already cooked the meal for him and that he needs to return. Don realized that his lost hopes were not true. After all, he walked into the restaurant and was shocked to see what was in front of his eyes. They had set an entire table just for Don with an elaborate meal course. They decorated the table as though it was for royalty. It was enough food for at least 5 people to eat. The manager got him seated and told him the reason behind this grand gesture and why he went out of his way to help Don. The manager told him that he has been working in this restaurant only for a year. The manager used to be a successful person. One accident changed his entire life. He had to spend all of his life savings to save his life, but unfortunately they could not see his wife and she passed away. The manager was so depressed that he got into alcoholism and ended up on the streets. One day he walked into the very same restaurant and the owner was kind enough to take him in and give him a new start to his life. You want to do the same for Don and helped lift him. The manager left him alone to enjoy his food, for the rest of the staff walked in and treated him like he were royalty. They served each meal as he completed his food. Once he was done, all the staff members came to the door to see him off. Before he left, the manager told him that he would not let him go empty-handed. They all collect a little money from the staff and handed over some money. They also packed some food for later and the manager told him to come back the next day if he was interested in getting a job and working here. Well, this was happening. Every employee in the restaurant chain received a message from the owner of the restaurant that he would be visiting one of the branches. All other employees had to gather in one place. An important meeting. They were all dressed to their best and were waiting for the owner to arrive. Owner did not arrive, but they saw that Don was walking towards the restaurant. The rest of the employees started screaming at him and asked him to move away from the spot. While everyone was busy yelling at Don, the manager who fed him the previous night invited him in and asked him to enter the kitchen and wait there until he was asked to come out. More time passed and the owner had not arrived yet. The manager started calling the owner and asked him if he was going to arrive at the location. The owner picked up the call and told him that he was already waiting in the kitchen. Everyone rushed inside and was shocked. Don had washed his face and fixed his clothes. The staff was left standing there in shock and shame. They did not know what to tell. At this point everyone knew that he visited all the restaurants in the costume of a homeless man. Don was the owner of all these fancy restaurants. He told each and everyone about their behavior and what he felt in the past few days. We could not have been more disappointed with his own employees from the beginning. There was no homeless man in the picture, but it was Don, the owner of the famous restaurant chain, that tested all his employees. Why did he have to test his own employee? He received the bad news from his doctor that he has heart cancer and has very few days left. From the beginning he used to preach and teach his employees to stay calm, but will they really follow the path of kindness? He need to make sure his values are. Don had no real family, and his only family was the employees in the restaurant, and more than anyone else he trusted Carlos, as he was his main man and best friend for many days. You could expect this kind of behavior from the others. Carlos was the one who broke his trust and spoke about Don in the worst way possible. He was happy that he learned this truth before he handed over his wealth to Carlos. He was happy to see the true faces of people before he died. Don stood there and looked at everyone in disappointment. He told everyone how badly he was treated in each branch, and not a single person was ready to give him even a piece of bread. Everyone was regretting their actions and started crying in front of him. They begged for his forgiveness and told him they would improve. Don went on to tell everyone about how they should not treat a person wrong only because of their clothing and status. They run a chain of restaurants and giving food to the world is what they need to do, and once in a while giving away free food to those who are in need will not kill them. He announced that the true heir of his restaurant chain will be the one on the main street that welcomed him and gave him food to eat. The rest to behave in a bad way with him would be fired, and there were no second chances for anyone. They will run all his restaurants and take over his wealth. Do you wish to the rest of them the best in light? And he spent all his last days in the restaurant that treated him well. Learn not to judge a book by its cover, and more importantly be kind to one another.